The most famous superhero in the world is soaring like never before. Superman exceeded expectations with its opening weekend box office, and that's a great sign for the future of the DCU. James Gunn's Superman has finally touched down in theaters, and it doesn't disappoint. David Corenswet's debut as the Son of Krypton kicks things off in style, featuring an eye-catching aesthetic and memorable performances. Most critics seem to agree, as the film boasts an impressive 82% rating on Rotten Tomatoes as of its release date. There's a lot riding on Superman's success. As the first feature film in the new DC universe, it sets the tone of what's to come. Movies that flop typically don't get sequels, let alone entire multimedia franchises. Gunn and his DC Studios co-CEO Peter Safran have years of content mapped out, and that entire plan falls apart if audiences send the message that they're not interested.
Hey buddy, eyes up here.
With opening weekend wrapped up, it seems that Gunn, Safran, and the executives at Warner Brothers can breathe easy. Believe it or not, it's been 12 years since Superman's last solo movie, and just like his most recent one, 2013's Man of Steel was made to launch a franchise in the vein of the MCU. The success of Christopher Nolan's gritty Batman trilogy and the failure of 2011's more lighthearted Green Lantern prompted Warner Brothers to take the DC Extended Universe in a more mature direction with Zack Snyder and Henry Cavill. It was all building up to a Justice League movie, but Snyder's sudden departure during production and replacement with Joss Whedon resulted in a poorly reviewed release. The franchise kept on going after that, but it wasn't in the greatest place. Other than the long-awaited Snyder Cut and James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, most of the DCEU films in the 2020s were either forgettable or unwatchable. Like it or not, audiences were looking for something different. As Dwayne Johnson might put it, the hierarchy of the DC universe was about to change. Now the DCEU has given way to the DCU, and Superman is its attempt to forge a similar path while also learning from its predecessor's mistakes.
Hey! Quit messing around!
I'm not messing around, I'm doing important stuff.
Before 2018, the idea that James Gunn could become the co-CEO of DC Studios was laughable. After all, he was 2/3 of the way through the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and it didn't seem like Disney and Marvel would be willing to give him up so easily. That wasn't the case. Gunn was given the boot after some offensive social media posts that he had made years earlier were uncovered. Fans were outraged, but the filmmaker didn't waste time taking his talents to DC. He was eventually rehired by Marvel after his Hollywood peers rallied in his defense, but only after signing on to make The Suicide Squad. The R-rated anti-hero comedy was a financial failure, but COVID-19 was primarily to blame. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav was impressed enough to put Gunn and his producer Safran in charge of DC's future. One of Gunn's most important decisions was to decide what the first movie would be in his rebooted DC universe. Superman was an obvious choice, but the project needed a director. They say that if you want a job done well, then you should do it yourself, so Gunn decided to follow that advice.
I had been trying to crack it for years. This character's noble, and he's beautiful.
Gunn's name and face are all over promotional material for the film, so this is definitely a project that he's willing to stake his reputation on. Let's take a step back for a moment and remember who we're talking about here. Since his first comic book appearance in 1938, Superman has been the platonic ideal of the superhero. Ask anyone over the age of 6 and they'll probably be able to tell you his powers, his secret identity, and even the name of his love interest. He's not just the most iconic superhero in the world, he's one of the most recognizable fictional characters ever created. As much as people know and appreciate Superman, he hasn't exactly been in the spotlight recently. Man of Steel was all the way back in 2013, while Zack Snyder's Justice League only resurrects the hero after 2.5 hours of runtime. Batman v Superman was widely disliked, and Clark's final DCEU appearances were cameos in Black Adam and The Flash. People all across the world have been waiting patiently for Superman's return, but they don't have to wait any longer. With those things in mind, it's no wonder that Superman is bringing in everyone from casual fans to DC devotees. Before the film's release, some box office prediction outlets argued that the new version of the character is an untested quantity compared to something like Jurassic World Rebirth, but no one's more tested than the Man of Steel. One of the most important elements of filmmaking is casting, especially if you're looking for someone to play a hero as legendary as Superman. Luckily, Gunn found the perfect match for DC's next generation of heroes, David Corenswet. Corenswet, who was previously known for roles in The Politician and Pearl, spoke publicly about his desire to play Superman as early as 2019. He was officially cast in 2023. Corenswet is a dead ringer for Kal-El, and he has this affable personality to boot. But of course, you can't make a Superman movie with just Superman, and thankfully the rest of its casting choices are similarly inspired. Rachel Brosnahan of the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel fame was chosen for Clark Kent's co-worker/love interest Lois Lane. Nicholas Hoult, who was the war boy Nux in Mad Max Fury Road, shaved his head once again to play the evil billionaire Lex Luthor. The fact that he originally auditioned to play Superman himself made Hoult perfectly equipped to play the seethingly jealous villain. The cast is rounded out with names like Nathan Fillion, Eddie Gathegi, Isabella Merced, Anthony Carrigan, and Skylar Gisondo. Not necessarily A-listers, but actors with notable resumes and fan bases. There's even a dog. Everyone loves a dog, except for maybe the Superman robots.
We feed the canine, but he is unruly. And he realizes we are not flesh and blood and couldn't, in our heart of hearts, care less whether he lives or dies.
Superman doesn't have any truly marketable stars like Tom Cruise, but it makes up for it with chemistry. Gunn paid special care to the relationship between Lois and Clark, and for good reason. Their energy is especially infectious in promotional interviews for the film, making viewers want to buy tickets so they can see it in action. Speaking of promotion for Superman, there's sure been a lot of it. The film's marketing blitz has been in full force for weeks prior to release, featuring talk show appearances, brand partnerships, and so much more. No matter where you go, it's nearly impossible to escape Superman's watchful eye. Billboards for the film went up across the world, and his famous logo has been projected on landmarks like the Empire State Building, the Tower Bridge, and the Bandra Worley Sea Link. An 11-foot-tall Superman statue was suspended on top of London's tallest building, and a flag displayed underneath the Eiffel Tower. Companies including Toyota, Dairy Queen, and Progressive partnered with Warner and DC to put the Man of Steel in their advertising.
Did we beat him? Where's Superman?
Saving the world, maybe?
Finally, of course, there's a Superman Fortnite skin featuring Corn Sweat's likeness, and a mythic item that gives players Kal-El's signature powers. With exposure like that, it would have been much more shocking if the film had completely bombed its opening weekend. The entire world knows that Superman is back, as long as they're looking up, of course. The DCEU had a few lighthearted installments, but it always tried to be dark and gritty whenever it could. The DCU, on the other hand, is a bit more optimistic, and that might just be what the world needs right now. Gunn has gone on record to say that, thanks in part to negativity on social media, he felt inspired to emphasize the values of hope and kindness in his film. He told Deadline, "This Superman does seem to come at a particular time when people are feeling a loss of hope in other people's goodness. I don't make films to change the world, but if a few people could be just a bit nicer after this, it would make me happy."
I'm a much nicer person than I used to be. I am. I really am. Like I used to be kind of harsh.
Even before he landed the title role, Corn Sweat agreed that Superman should be more focused on giving people hope than anything else. In an interview with the Nerds of Color, he revealed, "I really like Superman as a hopeful character, both as a symbol of hope, but also as a person who has a rosy outlook on the world. Things can be good, things can be better. In a world that seems more divided than ever, Superman wants to be a beacon of light. It promises to transport viewers to a world where we can all unite behind an idealistic young man with unimaginable potential." That's more than enough reason for plenty of people to buy a ticket or three.
He saves people because it's the right thing to do. We could use a little bit more of that.
The DCEU did many of its characters justice, pun intended, but there was always a nagging sense that it was just a little bit embarrassed of its source material. While the world of the original Superman film series was vibrant and campy, the DCEU largely had muted colors and took itself painfully seriously. Thankfully, after 10 years of grays and browns, the DCU course corrects by depicting a version of Metropolis that looks straight out of the Silver Age. No disrespect to Zack Snyder and the rest of the filmmakers that helped bring the DCEU to life for a decade, but they were more focused on making superhero movies and comic book movies. In contrast, the bold and sunny nature of Superman 2025 feels like a breath of fresh air. The trailers have shown off iconic locations like the Fortress of Solitude, the Daily Planet office, and the Kent's Smallville farm, all of which are pleasing to look at and accurate to the comics. That accuracy doesn't end at the set design, though. While the DCEU took a few liberties as far as character designs are concerned, the characters of the DCU look exactly the way they do on the page. Even relatively obscure characters like Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho have been lovingly recreated in live action, proving to the more dedicated DC fans that they won't be left behind in the transition to a new continuity. More casual fans, meanwhile, have been drawn in by the simple fact that Superman doesn't look like any other superhero movie from this century. In a world that's grown accustomed to cinematic universes, perhaps the biggest draw of James Gunn's Superman is that you don't need to do any homework to watch it. Even though it begins 3 years into Clark Kent's superhero career, it works as a completely self-contained story no matter how familiar you are with his Kryptonian origins. But, of course, Superman isn't self-contained. It's the first of many movies and shows that make up the first phase of the DCU, which Gunn has referred to as Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. The slate for Gods and Monsters features a Lanterns TV series, Peacemaker Season 2, and films for Supergirl and Clayface, most of which promise to link back to Superman in the form of recurring characters and overarching storylines. With Superman getting great reviews and impressive opening weekend returns, there's no reason to believe that the franchise is in any danger. Audiences have proven that they're on board with Gunn's vision for the DCU, and in a few years, we'll lovingly look back at Superman as the film that started it all.